Hey everyone, before we get into today's review, I just want to give you all a heads up that there are going to be a lot of spoilers regarding the story, motifs, and themes of this game. If you have not yet played Hades 2, I would highly recommend you guys diving into a little bit of it at least, or watching a playthrough. But if you guys don't mind spoilers, have fun and enjoy the video. Being human isn't just about falling in love, pretty sunsets, or deciding what heels go with what outfit. Being human is about experiencing the not so comfortable aspects and the beauty of life combined into one event. Being human is a mixture of brilliance, pain, and exquisite meaning that creates a subjective life lived. Hades 2 Early Access dives into Milenoe's story, finding time to find her family and giving us a psychological lens into how the gods and goddesses utilized their understanding of humanity. With this being the final part of my review, I feel it crucial to discuss more of the bits of psychology of this game, as well as the use of humanity as a motif. Humanity in itself is wonderful and torturous. It's something that while in this game it may look small in part from the outside, dive into the story, read the interactions carefully, and you will see just how it is approached and the giant-sized way the narrative design and overall meaning is conveyed. What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be diving into the final part of my review for Hades 2 Early Access. Through the fields of morning, the cascading waterfalls of Oceanus, the turning tides of Tartarus, and back home where the trees whisper and friends are found in the smallest of forms. Hades 2 Early Access should be the guidepost for how all early access games are approached. Early access is a time where the company making the game can allow players to explore the world while it's still being created and furnished. The choice to make this game early access, allowing players to get a first-hand look and transparent peek behind the curtain, was smart and well thought out. The world of Hades 2 is an immersive rogue dungeon crawler that creates beautifully rich environments. The first Hades was an outline, a skeleton, if you will, of what's to come. Now, the psychology of humanity in this game is something special, but also something shocking. From the Greek mythology I've read, I've come across this notion in the game that the gods and goddesses wanted to be human without the pain, all the allure without the struggle of humanity. The struggle that the gods and goddesses imposed on one another was because they could, quite frankly. There are several stories about how mankind came to be, but the one that Greek mythology proposes is the most interesting and quite telling of how the gods loved to spend their time. The creation story by Prometheus is probably one of the most interesting creation stories I have ever read, and it will be down in the description below so you guys can check it out for yourselves as well. Prometheus and Epitheus were spared imprisonment in Tartarus because they had not fought with their fellow Titans during the war with the Olympians. They were given a task of creating man. Prometheus shaped a man out of mud, and Athena breathed life into his clay figure. Prometheus had assigned Epitheus the task of giving the creatures of the earth their various qualities, such as swiftness, cunning, strength, fur, wings. Unfortunately, by the time he had got to man, Epitheus had given all the good qualities out, and there were none left for man. So Prometheus decided to make man stand upright as the gods did, and to give them fire. Prometheus loved man more than the Olympians, who had banished most of his family to Tartarus. So when Zeus decreed that man must present a portion of each animal he sacrificed to the gods, Prometheus decided to trick Zeus. He created two piles, one with the bones wrapped in juicy fat, the other with the good meat hidden in the hide. He then bade Zeus to pick. Zeus picked the bones. Since he had given his word, Zeus had to accept that as his share for future sacrifices. In his anger over the trick, he took fire away from man. However, Prometheus lit a torch from the sun and brought it back again to man. Zeus was enraged that man again had fire. He decided to inflict a terrible punishment on both man and Prometheus. To punish man, Zeus and Hephaestus created a mortal of stunning beauty. The gods gave the mortal man many gifts of wealth. He then had Hermes give the mortal a deceptive heart and a lying tongue. This creation was Pandora, the first woman. A final gift was a jar, which Pandora was forbidden to open. Zeus sent Pandora down to Epimetheus, who was staying amongst the men. Prometheus had warned Epimetheus not to accept gifts from Zeus, but Pandora's beauty was too great and he allowed her to stay. Eventually, Pandora's curiosity about the jar she was forbidden to open became too great. She opened the jar and out flew all manner of evils, sorrows, plagues, and misfortunes. However, at the bottom of the jar held one good thing: hope. Zeus was angry at Prometheus for three things: being tricked on sacrifices, stealing fire from man, and for refusing to tell Zeus which Zeus's children would dethrone him. taken to the Caucasus Mountains and chained him to a rock with unbreakable adamantium chains. He was to be tormented day and night by a giant eagle tearing at his liver. Zeus gave Prometheus 2 ways out of his torment. He could tell Zeus who the mother of the child that would dethrone him was, or meet 2 conditions. First, that an immortal must volunteer to die for Prometheus. Second, that a mortal must kill the eagle and unchain him. Eventually, Chiron the centaur agreed to die for him, and Hercules killed the eagle and unbound him. As you guys have probably noticed, if you guys have played Hades 1 and Hades 2, you're going to recognize some of the names and places that I just mentioned in the creation. So as I continue reading this portion of the review, and from what I mentioned before, just keep that story in mind because it's very telling of how the gods like to utilize their time. Hades 2 did a fantastic job making Kronos a sadist with an ego and representing how the Greek gods were very malicious a lot of the time. Kronos represents time in a very evil but honest way in regards to the malicious comments that are made throughout the boss battle and how his fight is the only one that you can pause unless you make a potion for a spell at your home base. You don't necessarily need to pause that section of the boss battle, but if your hands are getting tired and you're getting a little bit weary and you're unsure of what's going on necessarily and you need to pause, I would highly recommend making that spell. Time for the gods is non-existent. It's irrelevant because gods don't die. They are simply the keepers of the world. They maintain balance, law, order, chaos, etc. Humanity was there to entertain the gods and keep them happy by worshiping them, performing sacrifices, praying to them in temples, and having festivals. So humans, being human, they show their emotions, their anger, their lust, and the gods wanted that. The gods wanted to be human without being human. They wanted beauty without the struggle or pain associated with a mortal life. In Hades 2, the gods are our timekeepers, but who keeps watch of the very beings that placed order over mankind? Hades 2 dives into the very psychology of the greed that Kronos represents. It also dives into the beauty of death with Moros, regaling his tales of being with humans at their final moment. The Greek gods loved humanity. It was like a puzzle to them, which is so beautifully depicted in this game. So let's talk about some of the changes that were made in the updates currently to Hades 2. I was so happy along the journey of this game to see a lot of the changes happening each time I went into play. For starters, the UI icons have been updated from just a ring to full pictures like the previous game. The movements, if you can believe it, are even faster, as well as the combat is a lot smoother, making speedruns of this game really fun. The scope of this game, much like the first, is short. There were only 4 sections, 5 if you count Kronos teleporting you to Asphodel. The main bosses and their locations in the early access include Hecate in Erebus, Scylla in Oceanus, Cerberus in the Fields of Morning, and Kronos in Tartarus. The bosses had a lot of weight to them and were properly difficult in this installment. I would even go as far as to say the bosses in Hades 2 were more difficult than the first game. Each area was uniquely different and incorporated key points of Greek mythology. The Fields of Morning was a personal favorite of mine. Seeing that incorporated was truly amazing and again showcased the beautiful crafted narrative design. Hades 2 Early Access shadow dropping into my life was an unexpected joy this year. Playing through this title and seeing the story unfold is quite wonderful and fills me with just a content excitement like no other. I'm looking forward to seeing what else gets added in Hades 2 and if Zagreus makes a guest appearance, since Hades is already in one of the dungeons in Tartarus. I would highly recommend getting this game in early access, and for $29.99, it's a steal for how already well done it is. Being a part of the early access process and playing the game while it's still in development is truly a special thing to be a part of. But you guys, that was my review on Hades 2 Early Access. Now, if you guys want, I can do a more kind of in-depth live stream into more of the psychology of Hades 2, because I feel as if there is so much to cover. Like I use my articles as a script, and I know that I went very light on the psychology than what I normally do, because there's so much to cover. So if you guys want me to do a separate video or a live stream discussing more in-depth psychology on Hades 2 and their characters, please let me know down in the comments below. I will gladly do something like that. I mean, just the Fields of Morning alone are incredibly, enriched in psychology, and it's unbelievably incredible to see how they incorporated that in the game. But you guys, that's it for me for today's video. If you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. May you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Umbasa.